There's a story about a woman who used to pray every night at the same time. For years, she sat beside her bed, folded her hands, and whispered the same words, "God, please speak to me, just once. I need to hear you." Every night she waited, and every night there was only silence. No voice, no sign, no answer. At first, she thought maybe she wasn't listening correctly. Then, maybe God was testing her patience. But as the years passed, that silence became heavier. It felt like God had gone quiet, like heaven had closed its doors. And yet, every night, she still prayed. Even without a sound, she believed that God was somewhere in the silence. She didn't know it then, but that silence was changing her. It was strengthening her faith, not destroying it. Maybe you've felt that same silence. You prayed for healing, and nothing happened. You asked for direction and heard no reply. You cried for comfort, and it seemed like no one came. And you started to wonder, did God forget me? Am I doing something wrong? But here's the truth. Sometimes God's silence isn't absence, it's preparation. It's the pause before His purpose unfolds. Silence has a way of testing our faith like nothing else. When God speaks, it's easy to believe. When He moves, it's easy to trust. But when He's silent, that's when our faith either breaks or deepens. The truth is, silence is where trust is born. Because faith isn't built when you see God working. Faith is built when you don't and you choose to believe anyway. Have you ever noticed how teachers stay silent during a test? They don't speak, not because they've left the room, but because it's time for you to apply what you've already learned. And in that silence, you realize something. You were never alone. The teacher was watching the whole time. That's how God works. He may not be talking, but He's teaching. He may not be moving, but He's molding. He may not be visible, but He's very present. When you feel God's silence, you're standing in holy ground, because it's the same silence that Abraham faced when God asked him to wait for a son. It's the same silence that Joseph endured in prison, forgotten by everyone. It's the same silence that Jesus felt in the garden when He said, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." And heaven stayed still. If God was silent with His own Son for a moment, it doesn't mean He loved him less. It meant the plan was bigger than the pain. Let's be honest. Sometimes God's silence hurts more than His no, because no gives you closure, but silence keeps you searching, and in that search, you grow. You start to listen differently. You start to notice the small things, the sunrise, the kindness of a stranger, the verse that appears at the right time. Suddenly, you realize that maybe God has been speaking, just not in the way you expected. In the book of 1 Kings 19, Elijah was desperate to hear God. He was tired, afraid, hiding in a cave, feeling like his mission was over. Then God told him to stand on the mountain because His presence was about to pass by. A strong wind came, but God wasn't in the wind. Then an earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. Then a fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And finally, a gentle whisper. That whisper was God. Maybe that's your moment right now. You've been waiting for a voice in the storm, but God has been whispering, in the silence. And maybe you've been praying for a big sign, but the sign is your own heart still beating in faith even after the storm. That's not weakness, that's worship. Here's something powerful. God's silence doesn't mean He's not working. It means He's working differently. While you're waiting, He's preparing. While you're crying, He's collecting every tear. While you're doubting, He's building the bridge that will carry you out of this valley. You may not hear Him right now, but one day you'll look back and say, "If God had answered when I wanted, I wouldn't be who I am today." God's silence is not rejection, it's refinement. It's His way of stripping away distractions so that when He finally speaks, you'll recognize His voice instantly. Because when you've been through silence, you learn that faith isn't about feelings, it's about trust. And that trust will carry you through anything. When God is silent, something sacred happens inside you. Your faith stops depending on feelings. It starts depending on truth. Because feelings change. They rise and fall like waves. But truth remains. And the truth is, God never leaves. Even when heaven seems quiet, His hand is still writing your story. Some of the most powerful chapters of faith were written in silence. Moses waited 40 years in the desert. Joseph waited in prison. David waited in caves. And even Jesus waited 30 years before His ministry began. All of them lived through seasons where God didn't say a word, and yet every one of them was being prepared. If God seems silent, it's not because He forgot you. It's because He's forming something in you that words can't explain yet. Maybe you're in a place like that right now. You've prayed for an answer. You've begged for direction. You've said, "God, just give me a sign." And still, nothing. But maybe the silence is the sign. Because sometimes silence is God saying, "Stay where you are. Trust me here." You see, when you pray for patience, God doesn't send it instantly. He gives you the silence to develop it. When you ask for peace, He doesn't remove the storm. He teaches you to rest inside it. And when you ask for faith, He allows the quiet moments where faith is your only choice. The silence of God isn't punishment, it's partnership. He's inviting you to walk with Him without seeing the path. He's saying, "I'm here even when you can't hear me." That's the kind of faith that moves mountains. Not the faith that always hears God, but the faith that still believes when it doesn't. Think about this. The seed never hears the voice of the gardener, yet it still trusts the soil. It stays buried in the dark, believing that one day the light will come. That's faith in silence. You may not see the sunlight right now, but roots are growing underneath. God is doing underground work in your soul. Quiet, slow, invisible work that will one day burst into life. Sometimes silence is God's way of saying, "I'm closer than ever." But this time, you'll learn to recognize me by faith, not by sound. Because if you only trust God when you hear Him, you'll doubt Him when He's quiet. But if you learn to trust Him in silence, you'll never fear silence again. When Jesus stood before Pilate, the Bible says He remained silent. He didn't defend Himself. He didn't argue. That silence wasn't weakness. It was purpose. Because even when Jesus said nothing, He was fulfilling everything. That's how God's silence works. He may not speak, but He's still saving. He may not explain, but He's still executing His plan. Sometimes what feels like God's delay is really His way of protecting you from something not ready yet. The job, the relationship, the answer, whatever it is, He's not saying never, He's saying not now. And when the silence breaks, you'll realize why it had to last that long. If you're in a silent season, here's what you can do instead of giving up. 1. Stay still. Don't rush ahead trying to make noise fill the quiet. Stillness is strength. 2. Stay faithful. Keep praying, even if it feels like talking to the air. He hears. 3. Stay watchful. Look for His fingerprints, not just His voice. Sometimes the smallest details reveal the biggest miracles. Because one day, the same silence that hurt you will become the space where you found your strength. You'll realize that in the silence, you learn to listen differently. You learn to see God in the small things, in the sunrise, in the peace that came out of nowhere, in the friend who showed up at the right time, in the verse that felt written just for you. That's how God speaks, quietly but precisely. And when you finally hear His voice again, you'll understand why He was silent for so long. Because in the quiet, you became someone ready to receive what He had to say. You'll realize that the silence wasn't God's absence, it was your transformation. So if heaven feels quiet right now, don't let the silence make you doubt. Let it make you stronger. Because silence doesn't mean God has stopped speaking. It means He's speaking in a language of trust. Hold on to this truth. Even in the silence, God is still working. Even in the waiting, God is still faithful. Even in the unknown, God is still good. Phrase for reflection and comments. Even in silence, I choose to trust God. Say it, write it, declare it, because every time you choose faith in silence, heaven celebrates your trust. Final message. You may not have the answers yet, but you have the one who is the answer. Keep walking, keep believing, keep living with God. Because even when He's silent, He's still speaking through the peace you feel, the strength you didn't know you had, and the faith that refuses to die. When God is silent, He's not gone. He's closer than ever.